Welcome to the Lila Life Show. I am your host, Linda Andrews, and I am so pumped to be with you today. As always, a special episode hoping to inspire you at that intersection of well-being and business fundamentals. I hope you find yourself in a beautiful start to the week. I know that sometimes there are these things in life called responsibilities that can creep up and derail the other things that can sometimes feel like creativity or creative pursuits, and that balance of responsibility and creative pursuits. How do we manage both? How do we make the time for both? How do we have the time, energy, and attention but for both? And I think the easiest way to check in on all this is to take a look at time. Not only take a look at time, but where time is misallocated, where time is not allocated. And the easiest way to figure that out is to look at where there's that struggle, that resistance, and likely the time is not being spent there. So we could go through a myriad of examples, but the way to find these pain points is to take a look at the past week, ask yourself what has been frustrating, what has been neglected? Where have those resistance points been? Okay. So this step one is the awareness, the inventory. You've done that, you've jotted down a few things. And now you take a look at, okay, over the next 2 to 4 weeks, how can I create some extra time? Often there are constraints, and constraints also exist in business and in the natural world. And these constraints can inspire more creativity to come through in these certain time blocks that you're now making that new time. So you've taken the inventory, you've had the awareness, and now you're looking at the calendar, you're looking at the next 2 to 4 weeks, right? You want to give yourself some of that transition time. This is a common problem that I see happen time and time again. I'm going to start this today. Do it today. Start it today. Start whatever that thing is that you are not starting or you're not making the time for. Start it today. Be consistent with it. The issue that I see happen time and time again is the consistency piece is because the space hasn't been carved out over time. So usually it is easy to do it today, right? Okay, I'm going to take 5 to 30 minutes and start this new task, right? Maybe you're neglecting your business finances and you just sort of look at it, but you know you need to look deeper at it, right? Okay, today's that time block. I'm going to do that today. You do it today. You want to do it daily or weekly, but you're not making that time long standing. And so that's where the trap comes in, where you want to be sure that you're creating that repetitive space. Sometimes you hear systems or standard operating procedures, but to start, just create the time and the space to do the things you know you need to be doing that you're not doing. I will say this a million times over. It can be messy. It's not perfect. You're starting from somewhere. And the way that this gets better is what's working, what's not, now what? These are the three simplest coaching questions, in my opinion. What is not working, right? Well, one of the things that could be working is you're not even doing it, right? What is working? You're aware of the issue. What's not working? I'm not even doing it. Okay, now what? I'm creating that time and that space. That's like an applied version of using that in this example of not taking the time to do financial analysis or financial assessment of the current business. You can obviously apply this to personal finances. And what I see often is that neglect, right? What is being neglected? What is being avoided? Usually those two tendencies are rooted in something deeper. I'll let you work on the something deeper in your own time. It may serve you to do a deep dive into that something deeper, or it just may be enough to be aware of what's going on and what you need to make the shifts for to go forward. And so, why 2 to 4 weeks? Even micro transitions take time for implementation. Even micro transitions take time for implementation. And so if you're used to your habits and patterns as they are, and then you're like, I'm going to do this now every day, but you haven't created that space, you can set yourself up for failure. And so if you say, from 30 days from today or 2 weeks from today, I'm going to have created that time and the space for this shift to happen and make that time and space in my calendar, talk to the key people in my life that I need to help me with these adjustments. That gives you some wiggle room in that transition. And I love this idea of lag time or give. You know, when there's slack, like you have a tight rope or there's slack, that slack sometimes you hear referred to as give. Usually there is a bit of time, there is some give to there is that kind of like generosity for things to be made right, right? There is early signals, hey, these things are a little haywire. Let's let's make these adjustments. Let's start making these adjustments now so we're not super off course down the road, right? And you can get ahead of it. But sometimes we're operating from the standpoint that not only are we off course, but the ship is going down today. And then it puts one in a state of fight or flight, and the clear decision making, the highest decision making, the best decision making is not accessible because it's feeling like you're operating from that panic mode. And again, this is why I love creating that time and the space. What I love as an exercise to start before you're doing any of this. And again, I talk about some of these fundamentals time and time again, because this is what I'm seeing people have the most struggles with is taking a look with reality in mind, right? With your current constraints and responsibilities in mind, but say, like, what is the dream week? What if I have a blank slate of a calendar and I'm going to plug in these different time blocks or plug in these different work blocks and plug in these different life blocks? How and what could I do to make that all happen? You get to be proactive in creating that schedule and taking that time to say, ideally, I work best in these work blocks here, or these are the types of activities I'm normally doing here. That's you creating your schedule. Again, this is that lifestyle design. And this is just one of my favorite topics to speak on because it doesn't have to be perfect or that dream week today, but you do have an idea of what you're orienting to and what you would like to move into. And it can start to give you a frame for incorporating some of these habits, incorporating some of these consistencies. So think about that. A note on the money side of business and the money side of life. Seeing yourself where you are at 100% without any blind spots specific to the finances, even in the most dire financial position, is such a critical piece to look at. And especially at the early stage. And especially at the early stage of business, because you may be self-funding, or let's say you got a grant for $10,000 and that's what you have. That's the gas you're putting in the engine to go. Being diligent about every single penny of that, directing that, and assessing and reassessing that. There's the nice to haves, have to haves, and being diligent in that from the get-go. It would be amazing if every founder had $1 million to put into their gas tank of business and just cruise with that. But what's not amazing about that often is that the founder is not knowing how to be diligent in the allocation of those funds. And so starting with $1,000 or $10,000 or whatever that dollar amount and getting some of these habits and patterns down and the discipline down of using the funds, allocating the funds, right? It's going to give you a better sense of how to do things. And some of these personal financial habits can be certainly duplicated and mirrored in the business financial habits, which I think speaks a lot to why so many businesses fail. A lot of people have trouble in their personal finances, and then you start your business and you have trouble in your business finances. The businesses are not failing because things are going great and there's all this profitability and everything's humming along, right? Usually the cause of the business failing is the financials are off, and the lack of profitability can be definitely one of those reasons. So just consider how to get in the financial habits as a founder. Is that a daily practice, looking at the bank accounts, being diligent about how you're allocating the funds, double checking expenses, cutting back where you can. And again, obviously keeping personal and business separate is important, but these same habits and patterns can apply to your personal life, including where can you simplify? Where are you creating chaos? Where are your own habits and patterns being disempowering? And so they're not serving you and the person you're becoming, the business you're becoming, and you want to make those changes. And so I think it'd be amazing if you could just take the magic wand or the magic paintbrush and clear out any distraction or anything that's taking you off course. And sometimes we can't, right? We can't control the outside, but there are elements that you are definitely in control of that could help you to clean up and to tidy up. And so it sounds sometimes redundant to talk about money, to talk about your schedule, and then lastly, to talk about your space. What is the space you're operating in? Does that feel like a supportive space to have that kind of clarity of mind, decision making? Are you living in a kind of shitstorm of things everywhere and it's chaotic and you're perpetuating more of the chaos? And that's why I love this pun and just kind of misspelling of harmony, putting the E, so it's har and then money, because you can have chaos, you can have harmony. You can create chaos, you can create harmony. And you can look at the decisions you're making as a business leader in your own business, even as a solopreneur, even at the first day or first week or first month, and just see what kind of energy are you making these decisions with? Is it coming from a space of lack, of destruction and chaos? Can you get anchored into clarity and peace of mind and being attentive to the matters that need most of your attention and letting in? I'm picturing, you've heard the maybe story of like the big rocks, like getting the big rocks done and the little pebbles and the little sands, piece of sand in the jar. I'm picturing the big rocks of what you need to get done as those fundamentals, and the little pebbles and the little pieces of sand being the millions of different things that are flying at you and that you're kind of having to protect yourself from, to keep and own your peace, to get done what needs to get done and proceed from there. So I hope, speaking of rocks, that some of these gems are landing for you today. As always, I am here to bring you insights from the lens of business fundamentals, what I like to call the business architecture, and the well-being side of things. So see here from today, what can apply to you? What have you been putting off that you need to give your time, energy, attention, and even maybe money to? What can you eliminate from your life? What can you delegate in your life? And what is needing your attention so that you can take those next steps and be at that next level? Likely where you've been is not going to be where you're going. And so you are by nature in a transition, in an up leveling, and just being aware of some of these roadblocks and blind spots that can keep you stuck, sometimes feeling like quicksand, not going to where you want to go. All right, please like, share, subscribe, get this to where you need to get it to, and I will talk to you next time on the Lila Life Show. Blessings to you on the journey, and yeah, give yourself some extra time to be grounded, to drink lots of water. No matter what's going on in the world, you can get tapped into your mission, vision, value, purpose, and feel that alignment every day. Blessings to you on the journey.